I got into marketing basically right out of high school, if you will. There's a
Wow.
there was like an apprenticeship that I did in an advertising agency, and I thought back then it was all like glossy, flashy business to be in. I then figured out quite fairly soon that there's more of a number side in me than the creative side, really, which then drove me to media.
So welcome to the Meaningful Jobs podcast season 3. I'm your host, Adrian, and today we're extremely honored to be joined by Hermann Hassenstein, who is the Senior Head of Marketing from Puma. So how are you doing, Hermann?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Adrian.
So, when a lot of people hear about Puma, they immediately get excited because it's one of the best brands there are, in the world. And with you being in such a high level position in marketing, I guess a lot of our listeners are dying to hear from you about any particular marketing insights you've got. But before we do this, can you tell us a little bit about your career? So how you got into marketing and how you got to where you are?
I got into marketing basically right out of high school, if you will. There's a
Wow.
there was like an apprenticeship that I did in an advertising agency, and I thought back then it was all like glossy, flashy business to be in. I then figured out quite fairly soon that there's more of a number side in me than the creative side, really, which then drove me to media planning and buying. And this is where I basically started my career after my university. And after that, it was more of trying to combine passion with something that will actually pay you well, right? And that is, well, media on the one hand side is great, but then on the other hand side, well, what clients are there out there that are really appealing to me, that I can identify with and actually ultimately motivate me? And that was back then for the World Cup 2006, Adidas, when we had the World Cup in Germany, and me on a media agency side, we took care of the so-called spectaculars for Adidas, which was the goalkeeper diving over the Autobahn and the fresco in the train station Cologne, and all the skyscraper wrappings in Frankfurt and Hamburg. And that was really something that I thought, wow, like really working for a sports brand is quite something. I mean, having them as a client is one thing, right? But then ultimately I thought, well, being on the brand side, that's even probably better. So after a short stint in New York, where I had Samsung as a client, again, me being in a media agency, then I had a job offer as head of media at Puma here in Boston. And that would be basically taking care of all of the global media strategy and planning and buying, as far as we could do it for all the 45 entities globally. But it was more of a coordination and administrative role with a brand that as you said, like I think is very, very exciting, always does cool stuff, is not necessarily the market leader in all the markets, only a few markets. But
still good enough, right? Still good enough.
We are a challenger brand, and we like this position and see it as a opportunity.
So before talking about Puma, let's just rewind a little bit to talk about your experience in Germany. So how different is it working in Germany compared to the US, you think?
That's a great question. Ultimately, I would say it's not that much different. What I do enjoy working in the US is a positive mindset. It's a can-do attitude. That doesn't really account for everyone and every team member, but I think it's generally something that is expected from you, that you come to work with a positive note, and you roll up your sleeves. You're ultimately responsible for what you're doing, and you're expected to take accountability. And I'm not saying that it's not necessarily like that in Germany, but I think it's not as prevalent. So,
Well, I think Germans are known for being really practical, right? So Americans obviously they get this, they have this side of it, but you're saying that American mindset might be even more positive, right?
That's
Compared
a
to
great point. That's a great
yeah,
point, Adrian. Maybe it's that Germans are practical and therefore sort of efficient. They would
yeah,
technically stop when something doesn't make sense anymore, and while maybe Americans are just more on the side of, well, what's the effect, and so they put more into it and expect a bigger effect to a degree where you already maybe hit a curve of saturation there. So that's maybe efficiency versus effectivity, so if it makes sense, right? So that's maybe one of the difference. I think ultimately the work-life balance is something that I think Americans still have to figure out, versus Germans who are very, very good at protecting themselves, shielding them off from too much work. And here's
that fits the stereotype, I guess.
5 p.m. I'm not going to respond to emails. I'm exaggerating to make a point, right? And especially when you're at a more senior level, yes, there's emails around the clock, there's calls around the clock, especially the global capacity. But this is something where the weekends are the weekends, and you don't necessarily work at the weekends. While in the US, I feel there's more of an expectation that no, this is you're going to be available, and so you're expected to basically.
That's a bit similar to the Asian mindset, I think. In a lot of Asian countries like Hong Kong, which is where I'm from, your boss expects you to still be working on holidays, which I'm not saying is a good mindset, but a bit similar to American values, I think.
I would agree with that, and I'm not. I don't think. Let me put it this way: what I hear from Asia, and especially like Korea, Japan, and then to a degree, of course, also China, has almost reached in sort of unhealthy areas, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone is sort of putting himself into a position where it's for the greater good, and you have to deliver for the company's good. While maybe in America, it's more for yourself and for your personal wealth and for your personal success. So I think there is a slight variance to that. That being said, maybe the effect is the same, and that is that basically, other than just working and schlepping the kids to sports and school events, etc., there's much time for yourself. And that I feel Western European, maybe in particular German, people have figured out that there's always some time built in for hobbies and meeting friends, hanging out outside at bars or beer gardens,
So, before you went to the States for your job in Puma, have you, been to the States for travel? And when you had this opportunity to go to the States to work full time, what's your initial reaction to it?
So I think it's sort of slightly biased. So first of all, I'm married to an American citizen. So
okay, that explains it
she came
then.
over to Hamburg when I was working at the media agency and experienced firsthand what it was to live in Germany or in Western Europe. And so we basically made the shift because there was parental leave and we weren't really jumping into the cold water. Rather than it was like, well, let's see if we can find jobs there. And my first experience being hired or like working in the US was at a media agency for a client that actually was from Korea, Samsung, right? And that was exactly what I just described. So it was working around the clock. So you got up early in the morning. You weren't really sure if you had a conference call at 6 a.m. or not. And then at 11 p.m., 12 p.m., or 12 a.m. rather, there were still conference calls. And it's, of course, the different time zone, but it was also the expectations from the client in Korea that you would, of course, be available as a global own team, So that was,
and especially if they are Samsung, right? You can't, do something that's not up to standard with such a big client, right?
100%.
Yeah.
They had different standards, I would say, from the clients that I used to work for before, which were Western European brands. It's not just Adidas, Reebok, but also Philips Consumer Electronics. So it was sort of comparable, right? But yeah, they had entirely different expectations and standards, to be honest.
I see. So I guess, being married to an American lady would be a lot easier for you to then, move to the States with her. So, after moving to the States, how was it like, staying with Puma, and what made you stay with Puma for such a long time?
Well, so I actually got the job at Puma in the US, so I've
Yeah,
never really had a chance to compare how it was to work for Puma in the headquarters back in Bavaria versus
understood.
here in the international marketing department. What ultimately I really, really enjoyed while having my first job on the brand side, the client side, as I call it, still from the media agency mindset, is the degree of freedom that we have, almost like, as long as it makes sense, do your thing, right? If
Yeah.
it's something that is good for the brand, then try to be scrappy about the resources that you take, put all in that you have for this project that you're after, and then make a proof of concept, and ultimately it will roll out you can roll out on a global level, right? So these opportunities, apart from my role responsibility for global media and then later global budget management, which was a little bit like a blueprint that I was able to maybe interpret and then in my own way, and maybe even build out in my own way. But when it comes to, let's say, market analytics or consumer insights, these were things that were absolutely not thought about at Puma as something that's needed, neither on a local nor on a central level. And I was always wondering, like, this is crazy. This is something that we absolutely need to do in order to be somewhat future-proof. And nobody said no here. It's just the mindset wasn't there that this is something that we really should put a lot of resource in. There's no, just like, you go, Herman, march on, and let's see where it takes us. And so now we have a team taking care of it, and there's tools and processes in place. Now we have a new CEO, a new marketing director. And of course, their expectations are, where is consumer insights? Where's the marketing analytics? And we are able to provide this now in a more or less organized manner that actually follows some certain standard procedures and processes, and is totally up to par with the market and the
So
industry.
I guess a lot of our listeners and candidates would like to understand how your work directly impacts the brand image of Puma, because a lot of people are fascinated by how brands can become the best in the world, right? There's so many other fashion brands, so many other retail brands. What do you think is, if you have any, the secret sauce or secret recipe that, propelled Puma to one of the best brands in the world, and how are you involved with it?
I guess it's a very good question, because I'm wondering, being more on the operational side of things, of course, I would question my own contribution to and how far the brand is getting more appealing or relevant to the consumer, right? I would say, though, that my job is to help decision makers, and also ultimately the creative, to make informed decisions, and not just based on gut feelings, which in the past turned out to be either right or wrong. For example, like a Rihanna collab back in 2014-15, I don't think you can really root it in consumer insights and then say, well, are now plateau shoes a big thing? The Rihanna Creeper shoe. And even designers would probably not even like let us help them the way, in terms of, well, what does consumer expect now? Well, the designers are always thinking about what consumers expect in 18 months or 2 years time, right? So that's we can argue about artificial intelligence and if this is something that can be extrapolated. That being said, with the brand tracker that we have in place, with marketing analytics, how to plan and repeat success, there is a lot of, you call it the secret sauce. There is now a formula, if you will, where we can tell the countries, and therefore ultimately also the other part of my job, the budget steering, strategic budget investment, where to strategically invest versus where not to invest. Do we need to have more signings with soccer players versus more ambassador signings, or lifestyle sponsorship, etc. So these are things where I think, yeah, we can help turning the right screws, push the right buttons. And that's ultimately where I see my responsibility and as a senior head of market operations,
So, in terms of working for Puma, a lot of people would like, obviously, to work for Puma. But what are the core values of working for Puma, and what are the kind of people you're looking for, you think?
I think it's basically not necessarily referring to core values at Puma, more like the result of the core values are, well, you got to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
You got to be, as I said earlier, you got to be scrappy about your resources. There's always too many jobs for not enough people, right? And being a challenger brand, it's not like we're not Nike. We cannot hire a huge team to throw at every problem, right? So we have to, look at it in like a humble way and being very nimble about the way we approach it and how we solve it. So you got to be passionate about it. You have to have some sort of a spirit that is almost like an entrepreneurial attitude within a company that some people would still describe as like, oh, that's a big tanker. But when you compare it to a company like Nike or Adidas, God, no, we are able to turn on the dime and really shift resources easily, which also at COVID has helped us. So we were able to cut marketing budget left and right and put it all into DTC channels and e-com at a much faster pace than our competitors could do. So the passion, the self-entrepreneurial, and I think you got to be a nice person because there's really it's the atmosphere at Puma. We always, maybe if you saw the town halls and the quarter results, the 75th birthday videos right now, we're a family. So we call it we pride ourselves being a Puma family.
Yeah.
And that really is something where in the media agency world, it's fine. You celebrate together. You go to the pub in London afterwards, right? It's all great. When it comes to brand side, the client side, it's not, I would say, is not really expected that you hang out with your colleagues all the time. But at Puma, that's ultimately what you do. So we're a relatively young crowd, I would say, and bringing in everybody to not just the celebrations, but actually, having fun at work with each other. That is, I think, absolutely is paramount.
Yeah, I think that's a great prerequisite, for a company to attract the best talent. And, aside from all these great things that you get working at Puma, like hanging out as a big family and all these learning opportunities, how would you say you guys contribute to society? Like, what's the greater meaning in working for such a large brand?
That's a very good question, because you're getting at the ikigai, like what's your what you get paid for, right? What you're good at, what you love to do, and what's actually good for society.
Yeah.
And then the sweet spot would be your ikigai, which is something that I need to question to a certain degree, because when you ultimately produce something, and shoes, apparel, fitness apparel is, yes, it needs to be produced. It probably has an impact on the environment, right? So it's really, you want to minimize that impact, I think. And this is something that with our sustainability approach at Puma, something we absolutely look after right now. So I'm not necessarily saying that apart from providing sports, fitness apparel for people who want to be active or stylish, but I think, are really focusing also on people who actually like to do sports and soccer, run, train, basketball, you name it. That's the one thing we want to incentivize people to do sports, of course, be living a healthy lifestyle. On the other hand, yes, we do know that the production of these goods has an impact, and we are absolutely more on a faster track, like say, in minimizing this impact than our competition. There's a big program that you can see online, 10 out of 10, and we are exceeding regularly our own goals in making this brand more sustainable brand. And that's not even greenwashing. I think we are absolutely conscious of the impact that we have. It's just going forward, and especially when you look at the consumer that is more conscious of this, you just have to be mindful and do everything you can in order to minimize this impact. And that, I think, we do that. And that's what I'm very, very proud of. And when you look at the Ikigai, what I say, like, oh, is it good for the environment? Or is it good for the greater good and the society? What's your net impact on that, you know? And for Puma, I couldn't really say, but I think if you replace that in the Ikigai, the 4 pillars, if you replace something that, well, do you identify with this? Are you proud of it? That, I think, is something that I can say absolutely yes. So there's nothing that I need to be embarrassed about, you know?
Well, that's good. That's good.
No, exactly. I mean, if you work for big oil or if you work for tobacco and alcohol, whatever, it's like, well, what's there, you know? So I think right now, yes, this is ultimately, for me, the way I would sort of slightly adjust the Ikigai and say, like, okay, are you motivated? Are you embarrassed about your employers? And no, absolutely
I
not.
see. I'm fascinated by how you view your competitors, because this came up quite a few times just now in our interview. So you talked a little bit about Adidas and Nike. How would you compare you guys to them? What kind of things that you think you're better than them, and what are the things that you think you need to try and catch up to hopefully overtake them?
Well, I think the one thing that I guess we can do better than them is what I said earlier. It's like, I think we're much more nimble. We can react much faster to certain trends and changes in consumer behavior. That being said, I think where we could do better is actually listening to the consumers, not just rely on our own gut feelings when it comes to designs and trends. But I think, yeah, especially when you have such big companies like Adidas and Nike, I think it's very, let's say, easy for them to just, let's say, swamp the market with just marketing money and sign all the teams and players, etc. So we have to be very, very, yes, responsible with our limited resources, right? Which again, I think makes us, let's say, very, very nimble and say, okay, well, we want to do this, but not necessarily that. We cannot just spray and pray, you know. We really have to,
of course,
be mindful on where we, what nest we put our eggs in. And this is something that I think, yeah, in the midterm, doesn't really sound now like a big strategy, right? But it's something that will always be to our advantage. So especially when it comes to clients, or let's say the retail, not necessarily the consumer, but the retail and what they demand from us, I think we are in a much better position to ultimately have them address their needs, and do not necessarily need to take care of so much on like a big e-com or all of our flagship stores, etc. Right? No, we can actually go to the retail and be, again, like very adaptive to their needs.
So just lastly, before we end the interview, you mentioned earlier in the interview about perhaps in America that people work more for themselves, their own reputation, whilst in Asia it could be you're working for the greater good, but the same result is that you work for long hours, right? So for yourself, how do you keep yourself motivated? What's the meaning of work aside from for a paycheck or for your own reputation?
Well, first of all, the paycheck and the ROI, let's say, right, that I get out of it. I think I'm in a very fortunate position that we have flexible work hours. And I think the way you paraphrase what I said earlier sounds rather drastic, like, oh, long hours and everything. No, it's more like there's an expectation also that I myself have, right? That I'm not necessarily always available, but I just deliver.
Yeah.
And this doesn't have to come at like a 9 to 5 or 9 to 8 or something, rather than no, it's like I can perfectly balance this with, well, getting my kids to the doctor or picking them up from school, in other words, and then add something later as long as the result is there, you know?
Mm.
And that is something that I don't know if it's just a Puma thing or, yes, I think it ultimately comes with that senior leadership has in you, the trust they have in you, right?
Yeah.
The freedom they give you. And that, I think, makes it for like a nice, well, I think we can say like work-life balance, even though there probably is not really such a thing. It's more like, well, you, as you said, you need the money and you need to deliver. It's more like ideally at your own terms, right?
I
And
see.
that is what at Puma right now, after you build your network and you have earned the trust, that is something that I right now enjoy very much. And that is where I don't really feel ever stressed, other than, yeah, sure, there's a budget presentation for next year and I have to work twice as hard, you know? So, but is it stress? No, not necessarily, because I can really pick and choose when to travel, where to go, and when to actually put my foot on the gas pedal, right?
Yeah.
As for the other thing, what I do for self-branding is right now, not much, to be honest. I think you called because of the an event, a Reuters event, you know, where ultimately I think once a year I set myself up for, or twice a year. I think it was my goal to get to a conference, maybe even speak at a conference, right? But that's more also like a personal learning curve challenge. Get out there, network with people to learn from their experiences, because I think ultimately when you just talk to your own Puma people, your own agency people, there is the risk that you're sort of missing out on a lot of things. And that's where in those marketing forums and conferences, I like to get inspired. And I get inspired easily because there's so many bright people out there. It's just mind-boggling, to be honest, because you always think like, oh, sure, I figured it all out. Chances are you haven't, or I haven't.
Yeah.
And you can learn so much. And that's what I said, like the learning curve for me personally needs to be steep at Puma, outside Puma. So I need the stimulus from outside. And it's not as much self-branding other than that I really want to be inspired and yeah, learn more. There's so much more to learn. Like,
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Herman. I wish, I could invite you in at another time to our podcast.